Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely, and with me today, of course, is Peter Lavelle, co-founder of The Gaggle, as well as host of RT's talk show, Crosstalk. Well, it's that time of the week, a very exciting time for all. It's the first Saturday of the new year, and we've already got our thumbs ups and thumbs downs for the new year, so we're off to a great start. I'll start off with a thumbs up. My thumbs up is Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri, who has boldly stepped forward as the one Republican senator, who is ready to challenge the certification of the electors on January the 6th. Of course, a number of Republican House members have already said that they will challenge them, but of course, none of these challenges can reach the state level of a debate, forcing a debate in Congress, unless it's joined by a senator. And Josh Hawley, so far, has been the one senator who has said that he will challenge the certification. Why it's very important that he has done this is that at this stage, we have heard a lot of claims. There seems to be a lot of evidence for widespread fraud, widespread irregularities, and it's very important that this is brought to the public's attention. It would be an absolute disgrace, on top of the disgrace that the last election was, essentially an election in which all of the safeguards and procedures that people have been putting in place for centuries to ensure security, safety, and integrity, all those were just cast aside, and therefore, I think America made itself look a laughing stock. I mean, an election that wouldn't be acceptable in the back of beyond became acceptable in the United States. But anyway, at this stage, before there's been a formal governmental inquiry, and we hope that there will be a governmental inquiry, before a formal governmental inquiry, and before any cowardly judge has agreed to hear some of the evidence, it's important that these allegations of fraud and irregularities get a public airing. And this will be the first time that this will be a public airing, because up until now, all the public has known is about Rudy Giuliani said this, and then we hear about the judge threw the case out for lack of standing. So this time we'll get to this public hearing, and I think that is all a good thing. So that Josh Hawley has done this, I think it's my thumbs up for the week. Okay, what about you, Peter?
You're absolutely right. It's absolutely necessary to do this. I mean, we're just being railroaded all of the time. Railroaded about Russiagate, railroaded about the pandemic, railroaded about the elections. I mean, just all left, right, and center. And you cannot stand up and disagree. There are too many irregularities for this election. There's a lot of statistical questionable things going on here. What is wrong to ask questions? That's all that's being done. Now, I can, the showmanship of Giuliani, I get that criticism. That's fine, but it doesn't get to the substance. You're talking about form all the time. I'm talking about substance. You're talking about substance. I mean, it's too important to let this just, blow by, nothing to see here. That's what we're constantly being told. There's nothing to see here. Well, there's plenty to see here. And if you don't do it, it will not be, in the eyes of tens of millions of voters, it will not be a legitimate president. I mean, are you willing to risk all of this because you don't want to hear any questions?
Right.
It's astounding that they're railroading us, and it's who's going to be? It's going to be to their detriment. It's going to be to their detriment. I mean, the silliness and juvenile behavior of these people. It's really astounding, and we'll all pay for it dearly. So I agree with your thumbs up. My thumbs down, it'll sound kind of silly and it's kind of ironic, is 2020. I'm glad the year is over, but as you and I privately talked, why do people celebrate New Year's? I've never really understood it. It's just the calendar changes one day, but the joyful feeling that we have passed 2020. Nothing's changed on the ground, folks. Okay, it's going to be pretty much more of the same, at least for months and months ahead of us here. Now, where I live and where you live, well, maybe you should clarify for me. I live in Moscow. There's not people don't have hang-ups about vaccines. Okay, so there's no vaccine war here. There was no mask war here. It doesn't look like that's going to be in the case in the U.S., in the U.K., and I'll be honest with you, I'll have to look into other countries. But now it's going to be the vaccine wars, and it's a lot of it still has to do with the same central core issue of social control. Okay, it's not medical care and health. Okay, it's about control. So we'll see where that goes. So in a way, folks, 2020, if we think of the maladies that made up a good part of 2020, they're still with us. So in a weird way, it's going to be what was it? The historian Carr, he called it the long 20 years. Okay, the interwar period. We're still living in the long 2020. So
right. No, I agree with that. And the vaccine issue is a very interesting one because, of course, now that the vaccine has arrived, people are confronted with a very salient issue. Now, COVID is an illness that you have a 99.8% chance of full recovery. This is a vaccine that is unknown. So therefore, you have to make a calculation that, am I better off taking this vaccine with unknown long-term effects, unknown side effects? It's been rushed to market without any of the proper testing and safeguards that we would expect from vaccine. Am I better off taking this, or should I just sort of take my chances of getting an illness and with a 99%
recover from?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we're suddenly finding this resistance that people are not taking the vaccine, and significantly, medical professionals are refusing to take the vaccine. So, like doctors, nurses, these, ambulance workers and so on are not taking the vaccine. So it's like suddenly that they're confronted with this thing. Well, hey, you've been talking about this pandemic, this terrible, terrible pandemic. Here's the remedy. I'm good. But, you first.
I got kind of an idea. I have kind of an idea. If it can be verified beyond a shadow of a doubt that you dramatically increased your wealth over the last 12 months, then you should be corralled and be forced to take the vaccine, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
George, if you could excuse me, I'd like to go back to your original point. There's something I forgot to say that I think is kind of important with Josh Hawley. Is that this is very interesting litmus test for loyalty to Trump also.
Right.
And we'll see, we'll see what real afterglow Trump has as we potentially go into the next administration. There's a lot of politics into this. I mean, I think there's an honest verification issue that has to be addressed. I mean, we have to put this to bed one way or another, or it'll nag at the body politic for a very long time to come. It will turn into a meme of its own. Oh yeah, that'll be like a 2020 election. It'll turn into a meme. Okay. And so, but the corollary to all of this here is that does Trump still have the right stuff? And I think it's being shown that he does. Okay, because it takes one senator. Okay, so that breaks the dam, right? So I mean, then there's no cost for any other senator to stand up. Okay, it's the now I'm going to actually use the Spartacus analogy correctly. Get rid of Booker. Josh Hawley is the Spartacus character right now, and other people will stand up and say I'm Spartacus too. So it's very interesting, and don't let the media gaslight you. Okay, I was just on the American Conservative website, and Rod Durr, which I'm very sympathetic to him. But he's way on the deep end again on an issue that I don't think he's familiar with enough. Okay, this is the Trump 2.0 in its embryo right now as we speak.
No, I think that's right. I think Josh Hawley has certainly now put down a marker as a front runner for 2024, because even if this, and it's quite likely, it won't get anywhere on January the 6th, he will say, hey, I was there. I fought for Trump. He'll go to the Republican voters and say, hey, I didn't chicken out. I fought for Trump. And I think that's very important, because if you think back in history, when Richard Nixon, his political career was over, he lost in California. When you ran for governor in California, it seemed like that's it. His career is over. It was such a humiliating defeat. And then he did something very clever. He campaigned for Barry Goldwater in '64 at the time when Nelson Rockefeller and George Romney, Mitt's father, essentially not only sat on their hands, they actually willed Goldwater to lose. That put paid to their careers in the Republican Party, whereas Nixon, who showed himself to be the loyal party man, he campaigned for Goldwater, even though Goldwater wasn't his cup of tea. Yeah, that put him in good stead to win the nomination in '68. Who'd have thunk it back in '62 when he lost the...
and it was it's so easy to smear Nixon. It's just a hobby that people have with, low octane thinkers. Richard Nixon is an absolutely fascinating political character, and he was the ultimate. I would say in the 20th century, it was FDR and Richard Nixon were the benchmarks, the litmus tests of politics of their time. And it's as regrettable and actually stupid Watergate was. It really was a footnote. It really was a second-rate break-in. Okay, I mean, if you're familiar with the scandal, but his presidency is completely overlooked, and his political skill. I mean, in '64, to stand up with Barry Goldwater. I mean, obviously Nixon was thinking of '68, okay, right. And it proved right because people remember. Yeah, he stood up for Barry when everybody else ran for the hills. Okay, Josh Hawley. As young as he is, and he's very, I think he's very flamboyant. I think he's very telegenic, and he's the kind of populist that really exists in the Donald Trump's base. So, I mean, this guy's got, he has a good nose for politics. Okay, I mean, the fact that he's what, a first-term senator, and he's already
he's only 41.
He's headlining everywhere.
Right, yeah, 41. He looks very young as well. So absolutely. And it's significant that the House members, the Republican House members, I mean, they're saying something like 130 Republican House members will challenge the certification. Now, that's very interesting because the Republican House members in general, are much closer to their base than are the senators. They run for office every 2 years. Senators only run every 6 years, so they're much closer. They know what the public wants, and that's why I think they're all saying, "Yeah, I'm with Trump. I'm going to challenge this the certification." They're looking for a re-election, and so they know that this is the position you need to take. So you have to wonder about the other senators who have presidential ambition, Ted Cruz or Rand Paul. What are they doing? I mean, because if they do nothing, then Hawley is really just, he's basically now opened up a huge lead against them. It's going to be hard for them to catch up.
And we can't, no one can predict the future with certainty by definition. But if it comes to cause because of health issues or other issues, Donald Trump might say, he was the guy. Right. He was the guy.
That's right.
He's the guy that stood next to me when the rest of you clowns in the Senate, showed no spine whatsoever. Right. Trump, for all of his faults, and we can talk about them endlessly, he values loyalty more than anything else. That's what we learned in the last 5 years, okay? Yep. Loyalty. And so Josh has a lot of currency right now, okay? A lot of cachet, and he's gonna have he has enormous cachet with the base. And that's not gonna be forgotten because, as you and I have said so many times, there's like a dozen or so that go on cable and cheer for Trump, and it looks like, it's a juggernaut. No, it's not, okay? What did Mitch McConnell do for Trump?
Right. No, that's it.
You don't have to wait for long because he didn't do it.
He didn't. No. What Mitch McConnell did, and this leads to my thumbs down for the week, is, of course, as always, the winner, Mitch McConnell. Probably about third.
He's always thumbs down.
The champion, the title holder for the most thumbs down. This is a person who has no interest at all in other than lining his pocket. I mean, this is what he's in the business of. So let's see now what his agenda. So no $2,000 check for anybody.
Scrooge.
Yeah,
Scrooge.
no, yeah. He overrode Trump's veto of the defense bill. So that means no ending of the Section 230 immunity for the internet giants, and no troop withdrawals from Afghanistan and Germany. So that's your legacy. That's Mitch McConnell. And now he has the nerve to tell Georgians, you've got to go out there and vote for Republicans because we need to maintain our control of the Senate. Why? So that you can be majority leader, so that you can do this bullshit in all eternity when you care about nothing other than just lining your pocket. And he does line his pocket very nicely. He and his wife, Elaine Chao, who has all sorts of connections with China and so on. So he really is sort of the worst of the swamp, the worst kind of politician imaginable in America.
Yeah, he torpedoed Trump on the way out on 3 issues that the base is like 90-10, about, Yeah. I mean, these issues are no-brainers with his base, okay? Particularly the $2,000 check. I mean, the largest defense outlay ever, okay? And we need money for COVID. Oh, snap, it's done. We got your money. Okay. It's such an insult. It's really an insult. And it shows you, McConnell, okay, fine. He retained, he remains leader of the Senate. Oh, that's good for him. But if he doesn't, well, so what? Like, he doesn't care. Okay. What is the Senate pushed? Except for Josh Hawley and Bernie Sanders, you give credit to Bernie because he was on the same page with Josh Hawley on that issue. And I go by the issue. I'm not going to, I'm not these kind of people that are ideologically possessed. If it's a good idea, I'll go with it. Okay. And so Mitch McConnell, it's about him to a certain extent because then he'll be minority leader. Okay. Wow. Okay. And his connections stay the same. The raising of money will be, we have to get Republicans back in the power. It's just the same kind of ridiculous grift. Okay. So, McConnell is by definition the worst type of politician in America, and and he's duplicated all over the country endlessly.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. It's all about raising money. So it's like, oh, we're raising money about all these terrible tech giants and what they do to the Republicans. Hey, you got to give us money, give us, give the Republicans. We got to fight the tech giants. Well, when you had the opportunity, you didn't do it. As soon as you're given an opportunity, you don't do it. But hey, let's raise some money and pretend that we are going to do something. They've been playing this little game for decades, and no doubt McConnell understands the arcana and minutiae of Senate procedures, which is probably why he has that position of leader. I mean, he kind of knows all these different maneuvers that you can do in the Senate, but the public doesn't care about any of that. And the issues that the public cares about, McConnell is nowhere to be found.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, it just shows the fissures inside the party. And again, Trump will be able to capitalize on this if he so wishes. I mean, I wouldn't discount the fact that McConnell will be the subject of a lot of tweets in the future, if you know what I mean.
Oh, undoubtedly. I think that the whole idea that he does all this, and as I say, or as you said rather, kicks Trump while he's on the way out, and then he does, right, but you got to go vote for the Republicans. Why would anyone do that? I mean, people, the Georgians, I think, well, what?
The only way that's going to happen, George, because the only way that's going to happen, I mean, we're following it as close as we can, but in the anomalous behavior or procedures of these elections have not been altered. Okay, there's only one thing that's going to really make sure that there's a Republican victory in Georgia is when Trump goes down there and he fills up those those venues, okay? And he's the one that's going to make a difference. You've said this from the very beginning, and it's really spot on. People vote for candidates. They don't vote for parties, not particularly in these special elections.
Right.
Particularly. I mean, they got to have a reason why to go out. It's not Mitch McConnell, I can guarantee you that.
Right, but also, I mean, as you say, I mean, if you have this idea that all of the flaws that we saw in the election are still in place, it's like you lose your shirt at a casino and you're told, the game is stacked, and you say, well, I'm going back in to win my money back, and you say, well, you're an idiot.
I'm going back to the same table, to the same dealer with the same chips and the same cards, and I'll win. Yeah,
this time I'm going to get my money back. Yeah. But that's the attitude. So
okay. Well, my thumbs up is Tucker Carlson. You've probably noticed, in much to my chagrin, that some of the Fox programs, they do the rerun stuff where they do the cut and paste stuff. Okay. And it's quite frustrating. The world goes on. I don't know why people need so much free time, but that's just
I agree with you. That's a very good point. I thought exactly the same as you. I mean, given also that Fox News' ratings are tanking, is this a great idea to take these long vacations while, as you say, things are going on? It's not like the world has gone on a holiday for 2 weeks.
Well, what Tucker and his team did, I thought was a real public service, is bringing back the Bobulinski interview, which I watched in its entirety today. I'm glad, because I've been thinking about it. You and I were talking about it privately yesterday, and it's intriguing because some of the stuff that have come out since that interview, and now we're just kind of adding layers and connecting more dots and stuff like that. And he comes off completely credible, completely honest, because when that interview was made, it hadn't become official that Hunter was under investigation. Okay, so now, now we know that, and then seeing the interview again, more veracity to that interview. So I'm really glad that Tucker is trying to keep that alive here, because it's going to be really important. You just said, not 3 minutes ago, I mean, McConnell's wife has Chinese connection. I mean, who doesn't in Washington, apparently, okay? Do you think there's going to be a bipartisan investigation into that? No. Should there be? You bet there should be. But there's too much money sloshing around there for people to take, and I think that's really why Swalwell might survive all this, because he might turn around and say, well, I know what you're doing, okay? That's what I think is probably there. And a couple of other people say, don't blow the lid on this here, because then we all go down.
Yes.
That's, that shows the level of corruption. It's so prevalent.
Yes.
And then there are all these media organizations that have connections to China. They don't want to spoil their gig over there. I mean, it's just not these politicians that are greedy. Okay. It goes down to media. It goes down to academia. It goes into entertainment. The whole usual suspects group there, they all are plugged into China. They don't want any investigation of what's going on there. No, none at all. Not at all. No, and before people, want to cast stones at me here, is that, the Chinese are doing exactly what they should be doing. Okay. You want to get influence. If someone wants to take your money, they're going to take your money, and you get your influence. It's the most time-honored thing that you can imagine with human connections. Okay. So, I mean, you could say, how dare they do it? But, what about it's always, when you think about bribery, these politicians that take money. Well, what about the ones that, it's a two-sided relationship. One gives for something else. Okay. Look at the entire equation. Just don't blame the Chinese for doing it. Think about the people that take the money to do what they ask. Okay. It's a binary relationship, and you have to look at both sides.
No, that's exactly right. The Chinese have realized what, in fact, billionaires have realized in the past, that it's actually quite cheap to buy people. You buy, you give somebody a paycheck of $100,000, and you make 50 people a paycheck of $100,000. It still costs a lot less than buying, a supersonic jet or supersonic bomber. Still less than investing in missile defense systems. It's relatively cheap buying people. So, George Soros, whom we've talked about before, he does this. It doesn't cost him that much. He buys newspapers, he buys reporters, he buys judges, he buys teachers, he buys all sorts of people of influence. and it works for him. And suddenly you get a very shady character. And Soros is a very shady character. If you look at his financial dealings, this is a man who was convicted in the court in France for insider trading. He's a currency manipulator, a worst sort of person. And he gets this wonderful press. Well, how do you get a wonderful press? Well, you buy people. Same with Bill Gates. I mean, if we remember what Gates was back in the 90s, I mean, this is a reviled person. I mean, the government brought an antitrust suit against him, and it won. I mean, basically, the judge ruled that Microsoft should be broken up. He was a hated person. And I don't know if you remember that disastrous deposition that he gave when he was really all over the place there. But now he's the saintly figure. How? Because he's been buying journalists. You know, he spends nice chunks of change. NPR takes money from him. All these various alternative internet sites like Vox takes money from him. So suddenly he becomes a saintly figure. And the Chinese do exactly the same thing.
And Netflix made that bootlicking documentary about him, right. In Bill's Brain, I think it was called.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, absolutely. Yeah. The pathetic thing is, George, that people will easily take money and betray their country at a drop of a hat. I mean, it just, you know, it's so prevalent that I think that, you know, people would, if it was ever, I mean, Peter Schweitzer, we need him more than ever before to expose, let's just take the Senate's connections to China, okay, and to other countries, okay. It's not even required for people in Congress to log their meetings with lobbyist groups. They're not required. No. I mean, you have these lobbyists come to Capitol Hill, go into congressional offices, and they're not required to make that public. They should, okay?
Right. Absolutely.
I mean, obviously they can meet in a restaurant, okay, but you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. No, that's right. Chinese, they have money to splash around. The Russians don't. So that's why, you know, it's the easiest thing in the world. The easiest way to garner positive headlines is to kick Russia. No adverse consequences. You know, you come before.
No downside. No downside. I mean, look, I mean, we've been talking a lot about China here. This applies to the Saudis and to the Qataris, Kuwaitis, the Turks. Believe it or not, the Turks actually have a very, very elaborate lobbying operation in the United States. A lot of countries do it here. We're putting too much focus on China, but. But you know, it's the amount of foreign money that floats around, and they buy institute. I mean, it's no coincidence that the Brookings Institution, you know, all of a sudden is talking about. You remember this a few years ago? Is that we have to break up Syria and all that? I'm pretty sure that came right from from Saudi Arabia or something like that. Okay, I mean, maybe they did a little bit of editing. Okay, but you know, these think tanks are just conduits for foreign money. To write, you know, a white paper, you know, by experts, okay, and it gives, you know, you have this veneer of credentialed individuals. No, it's called pay to play.
That's it. Yeah. I mean, back in the 90s, Mitch McConnell, I think he was deputy leader, whatever he was then, was a huge supporter of Kosovo independence. He was getting Albanian money at that time. You know, the Albanian money was sort of lining his pocket. So he became a huge advocate of Kosovo and therefore advocate for NATO bombing of Yugoslavia. This is a man who just, you know, he sort of sniffs money. You know, you dangle some dollars in front of him and he's there. You know, that's all he cares about. So
yeah, if he lived in a trailer park.
Yeah,
if he lived in a trailer park and you pulled $100 bill, he'd probably catch it.
The sniff, you know, is off. So that was that. So that was then. Back in, you know, China didn't have that much money in the 90s. So it was the Albanians who were giving him money. I mean, that's the way these people work.
Look at Rudy Giuliani and the MEK. Okay. You know, what used to be deemed by the State Department as a terrorist organization, and it has been documented that they've been involved in a lot of clandestine things. There are claims of murder and sabotage inside of Iran, which of course many prominent Western politicians sing the praises of the MEK, which is really a weird, bizarre, sick cult, by the way, okay, with no following inside of Iran whatsoever. But there's that dangling $100 bill going through the trailer park again, and Rudy's on that one.
That's it. Yeah. So that's right. It's going to be a very, very lucrative. I mean, Rudy is at a very lucrative post-mayoral career. Just sort of all the money has come to him. I mean, he's been a valiant fighter for Trump over the last few years, but all the rest, what he's done,
don't you think, George, that he's kind of a cash and go guy? No checks, please. Yeah. Cash will be fine.
That's right. And he's become quite friendly with Michael Milken, and I mean, the man his career was kind of built on that he went after Wall Street. He's the guy who sent Milken to prison, and now that created the reputation of this tough guy prosecutor Rudy Giuliani, elevated him to the mayoral office. But since then, he's sort of been hanging out with these same rich people, the ones that he went after and built his career on, because they're the ones with the money.
I think a lot of people don't understand how Rudy Giuliani, his career was an archetype for so many others in our popular culture. Okay, when you think of television shows and TV series, that's they regenerate the Giuliani figure, because you have this prosecutor taking on the mob in the toughest town in the world, in New York City.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and he was a TV whore. He was always on. He loved the sound of his voice. He loved to look at himself. And he created an architect, and it's been repeated.
That's a very good point. Exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. Exactly. And the archetype, and a lot of TV shows, but based on him. That's it. Exactly. Taking on the mob, taking on Wall Street. It's he's this tough guy. Incorruptible. This sort of the Elliot Ness of the era. Yeah. Somewhat different from the Rudy Giuliani that we now think of.
Yeah, cash and carry. I just love that. I mean, you did hear the rumor that he was demanding from the Trump campaign team after the election that he wanted $20,000 a day.
Yeah, I heard that.
In cash, most likely.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, that's all my thumbs up and thumbs down.
Yeah, no, I am also. I mean, any other. I mean, the only other thumbs down, but it's kind of an elaboration of what we already talked about, is the Democrats who are once again using this overheated, hysterical rhetoric about calling Trump's actions of trying to not certify the electors as treason, sedition, and this is absolutely ludicrous, over-the-top stuff that we heard for 4 years. Trump is traitor to the countries with Putin and whatever. What Trump is doing and what the Republicans are doing next week is what the Democrats themselves have done. That's what they did in 2005 when they refused to serve, when some Democrat, Barbara Boxer, who was a senator at the time, they refused to certify the electors from Ohio because they disputed the George Bush's victory in Ohio. Democrats have did that after the 2000 election over Florida. This is standard operating procedure. You do this in Congress. You don't you challenge the certification of the electors. So this ridiculous thing, in the media again regurgitating this treason, sedition, a coup d'etat. Come on, it's the Constitution. You're entitled to operate within the Constitution.
The founders were amazing thinkers. They thought this stuff out. They knew that they were going to be. First of all, what did Benjamin Franklin say? We have a republic if we can keep it, okay? And we know who doesn't want to keep it, okay? These are mechanisms that are put in place for this very reason, okay? And that's why they're being done. I mean, no one should be surprised by it at all. Why, does CNN decide who's the next president? Really? Exactly. Look at CNN's road record, okay? All right? No, they have no right to do that. We have a mechanism. We should follow through with it. And we're going to go a full circle here. Thumbs up to Josh Hawley for standing up for what's right, okay? Standing up for what's procedure, what is precedent, and maybe a few points in his corner and a feather in his hat moving forward.
That's exactly right. That's it. And exactly, these constitutional procedures were put in place. And that, I think, is a little different from what the Obama team was doing, which is lying to the Pfizer court and taking out a Pfizer warrant, again, when there wasn't even any legitimate basis for taking out a Pfizer warrant against the members of the Trump team, or bringing up nonsense like the Logan Act, or entrapping someone when telling him, hey, you don't need to bring a lawyer to this meeting. That is whatever you call it, sedition or coup or whatever. That's not using constitutional means, and that's all that the Republicans are doing. They're just using what's prescribed by the Constitution, unlike
the Democrats are bullies. There's all this talk about bullying. Have to fight bullying. These are the ultimate bullies. They bully everyone. Okay. And they don't check the facts, don't believe your lying eyes. Okay. I'm sick and tired of it. And it's destroying the body politic. If there is no consensus about what happened in this election, it's going to be with us for generations. Like I said, it will be a meme. It will be a meme. Oh yeah, that's just like a 2020 election. Watch what happens.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's thumbs ups and thumbs downs for the week. Big week ahead. We've got the congressional meeting on January the 6th. We also have the Georgia special elections on January the 5th. And we also have Trump going down to Georgia. I think it's on January the 3rd. So a lot's going on, which means that we will be weighing the thumbs ups and thumbs down with particular zeal next Saturday. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.